Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tony, and this is Tony's Tractor Adventure. The other day I was reading comments, and it dawned on me that I have been here 8 years making YouTube videos. That, first off, is kind of astounding to me that it's been 8 years already. And then there's another thing that kind of struck me is that I get the same question over and over again. Actually, a couple of questions that I get over and over again. And that question is, I've got 10 acres of land, I've got 3 acres of land, I've got 50 acres of land. What size tractor do I need? You can understand with that limited amount of information that I can't help someone. So we ended up having a discussion back and forth in comments. And it dawned on me that in this 8 years, I have not actually made a video on that subject. And it's the number one question I get from new tractor owners, which most people today are new tractor owners. They've never been around a tractor. They're generally someone who has worked their whole career and they're retiring or getting ready to retire, and they're going to buy their first tractor because they want to have a homestead. I know this is a hook, but I want you to watch this video, and I'm going to give you the second most asked question of potential new tractor owners. The second question will probably surprise you, and my answer will probably surprise you. In this video, I'm going to be using TYM tractors as the examples, but you can substitute any brand. Just know their specs. Before we get to the tractors, let's talk about why picking the right size tractor matters, and probably the number one regret most new tractor owners have. You might think, I've got 5 acres, so I need a small tractor, or I've got 40 acres, so I need a big tractor. The reality is it's not what size land you have or how much land you have, it's what you're going to be doing with it. And then also, new tractor owners, potential new tractor owners, generally make this one mistake, and that mistake is they don't think about what they're going to be doing in the future. They've just bought their property, they're just starting out, and they have some potential projects that they're thinking about right now. I've got to get these projects done, and they're thinking about, well, what tractor will do these projects? And probably they're on a budget, they just spent a bunch of money on land, and they're trying to get a lot of bang for their buck. The question that you got to ask yourself is, what are you going to be doing with it? Are you going to be mowing a half acre? Are you going to be tilling a garden? Are you going to be clearing a forest? Maybe you're thinking about making some hay. You know, now there's small hay equipment out there. One story pops to mind is a gentleman had about 50 acres of land, and he always, was reading the forums, and we were communicating back and forth, and he was determined he was going to get a bigger tractor. He was going to get something like a 55 or 60 horsepower tractor. And everything he read in the forums is always get the bigger tractor, always get the bigger tractor. Well, the reality is he had 50 acres, but almost all of it was in woods, and he wasn't going to harvest the woods. He was just letting the woods be natural. He only had about 3 acres that he actually used to mow or keep up. It was just right around his home. And he ended up getting like a 65 horsepower tractor, and then was disheartened with it because it was big and hard to move around. And, you really can't mow your yard with a 65 horsepower tractor. It's just too heavy. Even if you have a rotary cutter on the back or a flail mower on the back, you can't back up and mow around small things like you can a smaller tractor. On the flip side of that coin, a lot of times people, like I said, they have just purchased their land, and they're really money conscious right now. They got a lot of things coming at them, so they're trying to stretch their dollar as far as they can. And you'll have again the person that will buy 20 acres of land, but they'll buy something like the T224, which is a 22 horsepower tractor that weighs about 1,400 pounds. It's a great little tractor, but it's limited. It's more for around the home and mucking out stalls, but it's not really meant to be out clearing the woods or doing things like that. It can do small jobs, and it can do things in increments. The old saying is, you eat a whale one spoon at a time. That's kind of really going to play into what's going to happen when you have a small tractor. So again, I get that commenter or that person that says, hey, I've got 20 acres of land. I'm looking at the T224, And will this do what I need it to do? There's a few things they're not taking into consideration is what they're going to do in the future, not just the immediate projects. Second off, they're looking at the max lifting capacities of the tractor and thinking, well, it'll lift this much weight, that should be good. But I use this analogy, your car will go 100 miles an hour, but you don't drive it 100 miles an hour every time, everywhere you go, because you will absolutely wear the engine out, transmission out. Everything will wear out really fast because you're running it to to the maximum that it can run. Same thing will happen on a tractor, other than instead of going to jail for speeding, you can actually hurt yourself by overmaxing a tractor. Even if you don't hurt yourself, you're going to cause your small tractor to wear out much quicker than it's meant to. Again, just use that analogy. Just because you can lift 2,500 pounds doesn't mean you should all of the time. If you have a job that requires you to lift 2,500 pounds consistently, then you probably want to go with a tractor with a larger lift capacity than the max. You don't want to have it right at the max. I guess to summarize that is pick a tractor with some extra capacity so you're not always pushing it to the very limit. This is going to make you happier, make your work go smoother, and it's going to cut down on your repair cost. All right, let's start out with the smallest tractor I have right now. It is the TYM T224. It's about 22 horsepower, and it weighs about 1,400 pounds without a loader. This is great if you're going to be mowing your yard with it, because the tractor can be too heavy, and what happens is, as you mow over your yard over and over again, it causes a hard pan about 6 to 8 inches down in the soil, which starves your grass from water. So when you get a heavy tractor, that happens very fast. Well, the T224 is designed to have a very low pounds per square inch footprint on each wheel, and that's why it is so light. It only takes about 2 pounds per square inch to actually damage the grass, and about 2 to 3 pounds per square inch on your grass to cause a hard pan. The wetter your ground is, the more likely it is that you're going to cause a hard pan. So having the right size tractor for if you're going to be doing like mowing is your primary thing, like you want your yard to be pristine, then the 224 is probably going to be a great fit. The next thing you want to think about is like your PTO horsepower. Well, the little 224 is about 16, 17 PTO horsepower, which is going to allow you to pull a 4-foot tiller or a 4-foot flail mower or a 4-foot rotary cutter. PTO horsepower is a big deal. You can pull basically the weight of the tractor. You can pull about a 4-foot box blade or a 4-foot grader blade. So with the small tractor, you're going to be very limited to the size of the rear implement. So this brings me to the loader lift capacity of the T224. It has a lift capacity of around 700 pounds. So when you add a grapple, you have to take that into account. So the lift capacity is from the pins and not carrying any attachment on the end. So if you add a grapple that weighs 300 pounds, well, then you have about 400 pounds worth of lift capacity left to use. And that's still very useful. If you're picking up limbs and sticks and brush and briars, that's very useful weight. However, you're not going to clear woods with it. Also, you got to take into account what the tractor is meant for. Again, it's meant for mowing is the primary purpose of the T224, and basically all subcompacts, that's what they're designed around, is to be a mower. And then you have to think about things like this. To get the maximum lift capacity out of any subcompact tractor, you're going to need to load the rear tires. And if you're not familiar with loading the rear tires, which I know some are not, it means to fill the rear tires with fluid, and this gives you additional ballast. However, when you add that ballast to it, then it becomes not as good of a mower because it's heavier pounds per square inch. You'll add an extra 200 to 300 pounds on the rear end of the tractor, making it heavier pounds per square inch. Therefore, defeating the purpose of what it's meant for, is to be a good mower. So if you are going to use your loader to its maximum capacity, but you don't want to load the tires, it's very important that you put like a heavy implement on the rear, such as a tiller or a rotary cutter, that has the weight to give you the ability to safely use the tractor to its full capacity. If you don't, you're going to turn the tractor over. It's going to lift the rear wheels off the ground. And that goes for every tractor, no matter what size. You have to have the proper ballast. Most all tractors will outlift the weight of the tractor itself. The T224 is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It's great to have around your small homestead, or if it, can be a substitute tractor for mowing and also doing some light barn work. It's got its place, but you have to understand what it's meant to do. Next up is the TYM T25. It's a bit bigger, around 25 horsepower, and without a loader, it weighs about 2,000 pounds. With a loader, it's running about 2,600 pounds. The T25 is marketed as a subcompact tractor, but in reality, I think it's where the subcompact tractor and the compact tractor meets. It has a little bit more weight, and it has a little bit more lift capacity, but it has also some big tractor features like left and right brakes, and that comes into play when you're doing agriculture or like big time gardening, where you're going to the end of the row and you want to spin the tractor around. You can push the left brake and spin the tractor around on the left side. So those are things you got to think about on this tractor, is that it is heavier. You can get a belly mower with it. However, the tractor is heavier. With this size tractor, you're probably going to be wanting to use a loader a lot more. And the lift capacity of this tractor is about just over 1,300 pounds. And to get that lift capacity, you're really going to want to have the rear tires loaded. And even though you can buy the mid-mount mower, you're going to be over the pounds per square inch to keep that pristine yard you want. It's going to damage the yard, especially if you're mowing in any kind of damp situation. It's going to tear the yard. So I don't really recommend the T25 if you're wanting to have a pristine front yard and you want to use that as the mower. I'm going to go back to the T224 for that. However, if you're going to have more of like farm style life, you're going to be like mucking out stalls, you're going to be moving things around the farmyard, you're going to be doing some minor logging, you're going to be doing some minor land clearing. I think the T25 is really great for that, 10 acres or less. It's a very substantial tractor for what it is. I've always called it the little bulldog. So it will do a lot, but again, it's limited by its lift capacity. If you need to lift 1,500 pounds, it's not your tractor. I would say if you're going to continually lift things around, 1,000 pounds, that's going to be a great tractor for you. However, if you're trying to hit that 1,300 every day, I would probably, say move up to the next size tractor. So this brings me to the PTO. So the PTO is about 19, right at 20 horsepower. And this is going to allow you to safely run a 5-foot tiller in most scenarios, and also a 5-foot rotary cutter, 5-foot flail mower. And it'll do a really good job with the tires loaded in the rear. It'll pull a 5-foot box blade and a 5-foot grader blade really well. It's a stout little tractor. It's definitely more protected on the underside, so I'm not had any issues about going out in the woods as much. As I would be afraid to do that with the 224 because of the cooling fan. So the T25 is built more like a big tractor. If your land's got some pasture or a bigger garden and you're not planning major projects, the T25 is a solid pick. Just remember that you don't want to max the capacity out every day. It's definitely going to wear your tractor out quicker. Just another tease, make sure you watch to the end, and I'll tell you the second most asked question. And again, it's probably going to surprise you, and my answer is probably going to surprise you. We're getting serious now. I'm going to start talking about the TYM T474. And now we're getting over into a 48 horsepower tractor that weighs about 3,000 pounds without loaded tires and without the loader. When you add those things to this tractor, you're getting up into about the 5,000 pound range. And this tractor is really good for those bigger jobs like 10 to 20 acres. The TYM T474 is, you're getting into a nice compact utility tractor. 48 horsepower, like I said, and it'll pull a 6-foot tiller. It'll pull a 6-foot box blade. It'll pull a 6-foot rotary cutter, 6-foot flail mower. You get into things where, like, if you have a wood chipper, this size tractor is really going to hold up and do much better It's not going to bog down as much because you got that extra horsepower. You're running right about 37 to 40 horsepower on the PTO. So you've got a lot of oomph behind it. So when you're running high intensity things like on the T474, I use a mulcher, a Bombalite mulcher on the back of it. Now there are smaller mulchers. They have a small one, but I use a 48-inch one on the back of the 474, and it does really great. It's about a perfect match. So the 474 is a great woods tractor. It's got a very low center of gravity. When you have the tires loaded and you have a nice ballast on the back, you can really do a lot of grapple work. And that low center of gravity lends itself to climbing up through the hills and really, hugging the ground. When you get into the 474 size of tractor, the variety of implements and attachments that you can run is going to greatly improve just because of the sheer size of the tractor and the weight. It's going to allow it to do things. It's going to allow you to do like offset mowers. And a good example is the Brush Tiger. We had the Brush Tiger on the front of the 474, which was, off to the right of the tractor, and you needed that extra weight and that low center of gravity to let you run that. So we got the 474 mainly because of our sawmill. We had a smaller sawmill, and we were lifting logs generally between 1,000 pounds and say 2,000 pounds. And this is well within the limits of the 474's loader. However, this brings us to our next tractor, which is we got the new sawmill, which will handle a 31-inch log, and it's 17 feet long. And the 474 doesn't have the capacity for that. Finally, my biggest tractor is the TYM 5520. It's a 55 horsepower tractor. It weighs about 5,000 pounds with a cab. And then when you load it out, you're going to be running around 6,000 pounds with a loader, maybe 6,500 pounds with a loader and loaded rear tires. So this brings me to another subject, and that subject is a cab. If you notice, this is the only tractor that we have that has a cab. And I want you to take into account when you're first starting your land, say you are starting to clear land, that a door, if you break a glass door on a cab tractor, no matter the brand, you're looking at $1,200 to $1,500 to repair that door. So taking a cab tractor out into a woods to clear land is just a risk that I wasn't willing to take. Now that we have enough clear land and we're going to be transitioning our homestead, a cab tractor makes sense. Now, also, I just let you know that we did sell the T25. So now we have the small tractor for our smaller jobs, and then the bigger tractor for the bigger jobs. And we're going to keep the 474 around because we do have a pretty good bit of woods that we're going to be maintaining trails and stuff on. And I'm still not comfortable with carrying the big tractor out into the woods, just my personal preference. The main reason that we have went with the 5520 is, for one, you can see we have a flex swing mower here that we're going to mow we're creating some pretty big pastures at the back of the property. And then also we have some jobs on the side that we do. And I can really make a little extra money with this flex swing mower. But one of the main reasons is the sawmill. We upgraded our sawmill to a bigger sawmill that's going to, need, the logs are going to be considerably heavier. So we kind of wanted a tractor that would do it all. And the 5520 is perfectly matched to our sawmill size, and also with the flex swing here. This is a 10-foot flex swing you see in the background. And it's really does a good job mowing, and it's comfortable. The 5520 or even the 574, which is kind of very similar to this tractor, are going to be really good for, your 30, 40 acre properties that have large pastures that need mowing. Now, I will caution you, both of the 5520 and the 574 have open station and cab versions. So if you're going to be in the woods constantly, I would consider the open station, just because of, like I said, you bust a glass out, you're talking thousands of dollars just for a single mistake. On those super hot days, you may regret that decision, but I don't know. It's personal preference, and you can put a cab tractor in the woods. You're just got to be extremely careful. And there's an old saying: those people there are people that have cab tractors that have broke doors, and those that will break doors. This brings us to the point in the conversation where we talk about the second most asked question: should I buy a backhoe for my tractor? Well, the answer is maybe or maybe not. And here's why. The pros to a tractor backhoe are that it's on the back of your tractor and it's on wheels, so therefore it's very mobile. However, because it's on the back of your tractor, it's not as efficient as a mini excavator. What I'm trying to say is, like, if you have to back up against a building and try to dig along the side of a building, you can't. It's really hard to do it with a tractor backhoe. You have to kind of angle the tractor in sideways, and then make sure that your outriggers don't actually, hit the wall. Another limiting factor of the tractor backhoe is the length. If you take into account the length of the loader, the tractor, and then the length of the backhoe, it really limits you in where you can get into, the spaces that you can get into. Now, each tractor backhoe that I have used has been very good diggers. They are strong as mini excavators in their size range. So I don't have a problem with the power of digging. So if you're going to be out in a big open fields and you're going to be moving from point A to point B, then probably a tractor backhoe may be the right thing for you. However, if you are going to be doing precise work, or you're going to be doing it, digging in areas that are very confined, then a tractor backhoe may not be right for you. Attributes to a tractor backhoe is that, it's on the back of your tractor, so you're only maintaining one engine and one hydraulic system. So the detractor of it is how much it costs. So from the smallest tractors up to like the 5520, you're looking anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000-$9,000 for a tractor backhoe that will fit your tractor with the subframe. And again, remember, when you take those backhoes off, they're going to be you're going to have to store that somewhere, and it's pretty large footprint. When I have this conversation with a new tractor owner or potential tractor owner, I have the question a lot of times is, how much digging are you going to do? What projects are you got lined up for this? And a lot of times they will have a single project in mind. And then after that, they're probably going to take that backhoe off, set it off to the side, and it's not going to be used. And some people are like, I'll just sell it after I get through with it. Well, it's really hard to sell a specific, a backhoe that's made specifically for one brand and one model of tractor. It's not a universal implement. So keep that in mind when you think about it. And also you think about the cost. Well, let's say you're buying one of the larger ones that say $7,000 to $8,000. Well, how many times can you rent a mini excavator, and how long can you rent a mini excavator for $7,000 to $8,000? Also, in today's market, there are alternatives. So recently, I received a little mini 1-ton excavator. And up until this point, I've always been curious by them. I really have. But up until this point, I have not really gave it a lot of, credence or thought. But now after getting one, I'm saying, for almost the same money that you can buy in a tractor mounted backhoe, you can get a mini excavator. They're coming in $7,000-$8,000, and they're very capable machines. And they'll go into a lot of tight spaces. However, they are very slow. Even the ones that have 2 speeds are still very slow compared to a tractor. So if you're going to be doing a lot of backhoe work in open areas, moving from point A to point B, then I'd say probably a tractor backhoe is the correct thing for you. If you're going to be doing a lot of digging, and you're going to be in confined spaces, then you're definitely we're going to need a mini excavator. It's just a better setup. You could even put the mini excavator on a trailer and put it behind your tractor and carry it from place to place as well. Now, the detracting of a mini excavator is the fact that it has, you got to take care of another whole system. So that is one of the things to think about. So wrapping up, it's important to match your tractor to the land, the terrain, the task, and your future plans. 5 acres or a flat yard, your T224 might be the right tractor for you. 40 acres with light hay work, the 5520 is probably the way you want to go. Don't underbuy today thinking in the long term you'll trade in your tractor, because just keep in mind that later the prices of the tractor you want will be even higher. I truly hope this video helps some people out. If it does, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe. God bless. Have a great day.